is he here for this, or has he not checked out?
I don't know.
I still have him on my screen.
Me too. Be right back. Go ahead, Phil.
Okay. Michelle, you want to start?
Sure.
Do you want to share your screen?
Sure, if that is what you would like.
Alice, you'd prefer it up on the screen, right?
Please.
Can you see that okay?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. So we're looking at draft 2.1 Senate government operations recommendations. I'm going to move quickly. Section 1, and I realized I need to still tweak this around what you had said, Senator Baruth, is just clarifying on subdivision 3 there that it's if a town hasn't voted by that date,
Right.
not that date, and that's a week after town meeting week is when it is.
Okay.
Section 2 was the addition of the ability for the advisory committee to remove a board member according to a 2/3 vote of the advisory committee. I will show you that actually when we go to your amendment, what I did, Philip, is I looked at the issue because you had asked me the question around cause.
Yep.
And so there isn't any kind of standard that is used, either a process or the basis for what constitutes removal for cause. That's usually either in statute or in rule, or you fall back on case law. So the way that the language talks about it now is that it's removes in accordance with the APA. I think what I did in your draft is I made it clear and just said that the board is to adopt rules regarding the basis and procedure for removal by cause. And that's what is in the statute for the Green Mountain Care Board, which also has removal of the other members by, if you remove a member from the other members. And so that would be my suggestion to you. And so I do have that in your amendment when I go over it.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. So social equity. So section 3 here.
I'm sorry, just one more question on that.
Sure.
So, and this maybe gets to a question Joe had last time, which is now we've said that there are 2 entities that can remove. So is what you're saying that the control board would make the rules also for the advisory panel?
Yes, because the advisory committee is just an entity within the board. They're not state employees. Yep. They're not their own, so they're just part of that. And so the board would be going through the rulemaking process, adopting that for both. So what is the basis for cause? And then what is the procedure, the due process procedure for that? Okay.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So on section 3 on social equity, this is just a tweak to, you had 2 subsections in there. One was directing the board to look at reduced fees for certain communities. And the other section had to do with asking the board to report back to you on a low interest loan fund for marginalized communities. And so right now, the section 3 just has to do with fees. And you'll see that when they report to you that they're to propose, so it's rather that before it said that they were considering reduced fees. And so this is that shall propose a plan for reducing or eliminating license fees for individuals from communities that have historically been disproportionately impacted by cannabis prohibition or individuals directly and personally impacted by cannabis prohibition. And so, again, the board's going to be proposing to you the fees and where there should be reduced license fees. And so it's around individuals from communities that have historically been impacted. So that could be a literal community, rural community that I know that y'all have spoken about. It could be a race-based community. It could be talking about groups of folks who maybe have had interaction with the criminal justice system because of cannabis prohibition. And then the second one is individuals directly and personally impacted by cannabis prohibition. So that could be somebody, and so the board will be kind of fleshing out the details there and would be proposing kind of how that's identified. And as you know, this is kind of a tricky universe in defining this group, but that's what they came up with. Okay.
Mhm.
So section 4 is adding a new chapter in Title 7 under the other cannabis chapters that would create for social equity programs. So section 986 is just the definition section. Section 987 establishes the Cannabis Business Development Fund. And the fund you'll see in subsection B is comprised of 3% of the gross sales from integrated licensees prior to October 15th, because by October 15th, you should have retailers online. And so during that interim kind of early period in which integrated has a little bit of a head start, 3% of their gross sales would then be would be contributed to the Cannabis Business Development Fund up to a maximum of $50,000 per licensee. So because there's 5 dispensary licenses currently, there could be a maximum of 5 integrated licensees. So you could see potentially $250,000 coming from dispensaries into the Cannabis Business Development Fund.
And I'm reading that correctly, that this is moot after October 15th, 2022. So
Yes.
after that time, the only money would be monies allocated by the General Assembly through the appropriations process.
Correct.
Okay.
You'll see in subsection 2, the fund, the purpose of the fund is to provide low interest rate loans and grants to social equity applicants to pay for ordinary necessary expenses to start and operate a cannabis establishment, to pay for outreach that may be provided or targeted to attract and support social equity applicants, and necessary costs incurred in administering the funds. And then you'll see in subsection D is just identifying that it's to be a revolving loan fund. So as loans are paid back, then that provides additional funding within the fund for future loans. Section 988 is that ACCD is directed to establish a program for using those funds for the purposes of providing the financial assistance, loans, grants, and outreach to social equity applicants. Section 5, so you may be asking at this point, who's a social equity applicant? And what GovOps came up with is they are asking the advisory committee in consultation with the board to develop criteria for social equity applicants for the purpose of obtaining the loans and the grants, and to report to the General Assembly by this October on what those criteria would be, so that you can pursue legislation if you're in session then, or you would do it in January, that you would add into that definition section earlier in this chapter the criteria for the social equity applicants. And that one's they talked quite a bit in committee about who should qualify and this and that. But again, as you've had a little bit of that discussion, it's complex and a lot of thoughts on that. And so they wanted to ask the advisory committee to recommend the criteria of who qualifies as a social equity applicant. Next is an appropriation of $500,000 into the Cannabis Business Development Fund for FY22.
And so the idea is 500,000 would be there, then money from the 3% would flow in, and then that would be there to help people jumpstart their operations from the starting line.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So there would be $500,000 in there when they first start issuing licenses for like small cultivator, for when they first start doing it. But as there are sales, you'll have more money flowing in from the integrated licensees. And then obviously, as things go on, if, legislature may decide to attach other revenue to this, and maybe you say, 1% of the excise tax goes to, whatever, but you can always add on. So,
Okay, great. Thank you.
yep. Section 7, this is moving the medical program over to the control board. I guess 8 months earlier than was provided in legislation that passed last fall. So right now, the law is that on March 1st of next year, the medical program is supposed to shift over from DPS to the board. And on that same date is when the new medical program and dispensary statutes will take effect. And the goal was hopefully that the rules will also be in place and start at that time. So it was all tagged to go together. So GovOps heard testimony and decided to propose moving the program over earlier. And it would move not only the program, but also the fee fund, because there's right now the medical program is completely self-sustaining. It doesn't receive any appropriations. It's just run by the registration fees. And so they would move that money over with it. And then they would also move the positions, including the individuals, as long as they want to go over, the individuals who are currently employed in those positions. So they would just kind of keep doing what they're doing, but do then under the board. And I think part of the hope there is that, and I think there's 3 full-time classified positions currently, is that they would perhaps be able to maybe offer some assistance to the board in the other areas because the board has so much to do in these first couple of years.
I have a question about that. I'm not concerned with the positions. I'm concerned with us telling the administration to move the individuals employed in those positions. I don't think that's our role. I think that's an administrative decision. Did they discuss that in government ops?
I don't know if they did. I think I assumed that that's what they were talking about because they've had like a long time person who's been running it and everything. And I think that they didn't want it to.
Yeah, but I
the
think
impression to be
well,
that
I know,
they were.
but on the other hand, shouldn't the Cannabis Control Board hire people that they want to hire? I think that's going too far.
Okay.
Positions
I can just take out that one phrase.
Well, yeah, and the individuals employed in those positions.
That's what I mean.
think the
I would just
positions
take that out.
dedicated to it. Yeah, I really don't think that's our business. I'm sure that they will move the same individuals, but really administrative decision, not a.
Okay, I don't think that they have any, I don't think GovOps has an issue with that. I think it was my just interpretation of that they weren't looking to clear the decks, on those positions, so.
Understood. I don't know if anybody else is struck by that as well.
I was wondering about it too. It seems it's expressed very simply here, but it seems more complicated to. I'm just wondering, they would then work for the board?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But does the board where does the board sit in the administrative org chart? In other words, an agency or a department, I understand how they plug into human resources and other things. Is the board considered just another agency or department that the governor in effect staffs and runs?
Well, you specified in current law 2 positions.
Yep.
In terms of
But I mean, for instance, who does their human resources work? Like
the state.
The
That's what-
agency.
Because they're an administrative entity.
Okay, that was my question was,
Yeah.
okay,
Yep. They're independent, but they're an entity within the administrative branch. Yep.
okay, okay.
I just, yeah, if we just remove that, I'm fine with it.
Okay. And then you'll see here in subsection B is that the registry is to continue to be governed by, and the dispensaries as well, by the existing statutes in Title 18 and Chapter 86. So, and the rules that have been adopted by DPS pursuant to that chapter. So, I consulted with a few folks because I had never done this before, where you kind of you move a program or an entity to another department, but they still operate for a certain period under the old rule. But my understanding is that you guys have done that a few times. And so it just is going to be until the new ones take effect in March, they would still just operate under the old laws, but they would be under the Cannabis Control Board.
Great.
Section 8 is just repealing two sections in Act 164 that had the program moving over in March. And that's it.
Now, what happened in Senate Ag?
Senate Ag, and the chair, I would have written a memo, but I was in there right until I came in to see you. And they held 3 committee hearings this week on it. They heard lots of witness testimony. They had me draft an amendment. They considered it a couple of days back and forth. And what they wanted me to tell you was they feel as though you've done an excellent job on this issue. And while they take a strong interest in these issues, some of the stuff that was presented by the witnesses about looking for changes is, really complex when you get down to it. And so that some of the things Senate Ag was looking at were things like establishing caps on the tiers, or increasing the square footage for small cultivators, or delineating between indoor, outdoor. And there's just a lot of data they would need and testimony and things like that in order to really do that in a well-reasoned way to make sure that there's no unintended consequences. And Act 164 contemplated that the board's going to be doing all of that. And so they thought at this point, the best route is to allow the board to proceed with doing that, knowing that the board is going to be coming back to you on a number of occasions, reporting back. And certainly that first issue with regard to reporting back on the fees, they have to establish tiers for all the licenses in order to recommend fees. And so they'll be doing that right out of the gate. And so there's a chance, there's opportunities for the legislature to weigh in on that through the legislative process, also through the administrative rules process. So they were comfortable just leaving it the way that it is for now. One thing that I will say is I don't think I included in this, but I think I might have included it in your amendment. I'll have to look and see. I think I did add it. Is the cultivation of the 25% for the early rollout with integrated licenses. And GovOps suggested that there be this language. So right now, so between August 1st and October 1st, 25% of cannabis flower sold by an integrated licensee during that, where they have that early advantage, is to be obtained from a licensed small cultivator. And Senate Government Operations recommended, and then Senate Agriculture agrees with GovOps recommendation of the addition of the words "if available," because the Jeff from the growers group said that he didn't think many of his members would want to sell to an integrated licensee. And so there remains a question about, well, if there isn't enough available product out there, because we know that like once the market is open, we've seen the lines in other states, and states often at the very beginning have a kind of a shortage of a supply. And if there isn't enough that can be obtained from small cultivators that's been grown and tested in accordance with the law, then they want to make sure that if the integrated licensee has the ability to create the production and sell it, that they're still able to do that.
I had a question about that because it seems like it allows either side to say it allows, as you said, small growers to say, we're not going to sell to you. But it seems like it would also allow for the possibility that you might have an integrated license holder who says, well, it wasn't possible, so I just used my own. But wouldn't that be their construction of what was possible? I mean, doesn't it
Well,
allow?
this is required. This is in statute. And so I would say that the Cannabis Control Board is going to be, working with them to ensure that they're in compliance with this, because this is going to be part of their license that's issued.
Okay, so there
Must be some kind of checks and balances with the board. Say, what are you doing? Show us who have you contacted? Here are the small cultivators who have,
okay.
that
And
kind of a thing.
And then they could say, I contacted 15 people, nobody would sell to me.
Right.
I have to say, just for the record, I'm very skeptical of the idea that if this is in law, all of these small growers will turn up their nose at, selling to an integrated license holder. I mean, that seems like the sort of posture people take when the bill is being written. But once it passes and becomes law, and they have a guaranteed market of 25% into these distributors, I don't know. Maybe they're much more guided by principle than profit, but I think these people have bills to pay too. They're gonna sell their
Right.
product.
And the thing is that because the other retailers aren't going to be online, there's not going to be, I don't know that there's any point in getting first out of the gate with a license if you don't have anybody to sell to.
Right.
So their only option is to sell to a dispensary or an integrated licensee. So this is trying to require, the integrated to say, so that, here's a supply and hey, cultivators, here's a place where you can sell prior to the whole retail market coming online in October.
Mm-hmm. Well, Mr. Chair, I like the language here around the development fund and the way it's being front loaded. That works well for me. We had some back and forth about whether to have a dedicated stream going forward from the excise tax, and I like this solution better. Dick, are you muted? I think you're muted.
Muting because there's been noise in the background.
Okay.
I'm fine with what we've got so far. I'm not disappointed in some ways that we didn't, in the agriculture response, but I understand. And I'm hopeful that these issues that we've all tried to achieve and working with the rural Vermont and the Vermont Growers Association and others can get heard as the bill moves forward. So I was kind of hoping that we would be able to. I appreciate the Agriculture Committee hearing, and I look forward to the memo. I would take a vote now if somebody wants to make a motion for quickly. Maybe we should take this down, Michelle, and then just go back to our normal view. You want to take there you go. Thank you.
I would move that we
Senator
report
Baruth.
the bill favorably, or that we amend as,
We amend the bill as seen in draft. What's the number draft?
Of the
Yeah.
recommendations is
Yeah.
2.1.
Draft 2.1. Senator Bruce has moved that we report draft 2.1 favorable. We amend S25 as seen in draft 2.1, 31121, with a full understanding that we will come back and discuss this bill further next week on either Tuesday and or Thursday.
So I'm going to do is I'm going to
Further
can I just say, I just want to make it clear. So I'm going to take the 2.1 is the Gov Ops recommendations. I'm going to incorporate that into your amendment, which will be your Judiciary Amendment 2.1. And then that's, if you're going to vote on it,
Right.
it'll be your version of 2.1 as amended.
with the government ops. Yeah.
Okay,
Government ops.
thanks.
Today, and then on Tuesday, we may further amend the bill, or on Thursday, we may further amend the bill, depending upon what it looks like. But this is odd, but the only way we can reach crossover. It's not like it hasn't been done before, by the way. Okay, Senator Bruce has moved. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, Peggy, could you please call the roll?
Senator Benning,
Yes.
Senator Nika,
No.
Senator Baruth,
yes,
Senator Sears,
Yes. The motion carries 3-1. Is there a motion to report favorably S25? And I'm going to ask Senator White to report the bill.
I'm sorry, could I revote my vote? I thought we were on the final bill.
No. Yes, sure you can.
I'd like to change my vote on the
Amendment.
to amend to yes.
Okay. Hold on just a second, I'll get them. Okay, yes, the vote is 4-0-1. Now Senator Bruce moved that we report S25 as amended, with the understanding that we'll be reviewing it all again on Tuesday or Thursday, or both. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Peggy, could you please call the roll?
Senator Benning,
Yes.
Senator Nika,
No.
Senator Baruth,
yes,
Senator Sears,
Yes, and I'm going to ask Senator White to report the bill.
will she be able to get it to Secretary Plumer today, though?
Maybe.
Because it has to come from her.
Could call her and ask her.
She said,
I'll
talked to her.
report.
She said she's feeling better, and so she could probably get it to him. I still have to write it and get it edited, so I can reach out to her.
Let me know, and I'll report it if she can't tentatively.
Okay,
Then I'll just turn and yield to her when they report it.
okay, all right.
Yeah, if she can't sign it today, I'll just yield to her. when we
I'll
get-
copy you on my correspondence to her, so we'll see.
Okay,
Okay, thanks.
all right. Is there any further business for Senate Judiciary? If not, we're on, you know what? We passed out 4 bills. We should be happy.
also,
Not all unanimous, but passed 4 bills out. We did it all. And